Welcome to the Common Man Football Show. My name is James Cobern, and today's episode we're doing Marqise Lee versus Stefon Diggs.
There can be only one.
And this was a question submitted by Moron, which I hope he's not trolling me. It says, can you do a Stefon Diggs versus Marqise Lee video, please? ? Yes. Yes. Let's do a Marqise Lee versus Stefon Diggs video. Now, again, it's an analytics battle, so it's basically just looking at what their analytics are, looking at what they looked like coming out of college, and, of course, what they look like in the NFL, which is going to play a really big part in this. But I figure, you know what? Let's go through all the data. Let's go through what they look like in terms of all the sort of facets, and then ultimately come to a conclusion of who's better, Stefon Diggs versus Marqise Lee, and of course what they may look like in the future, for both these guys. Because one guy's had kind of a disappointing career in Marqise Lee, while another guy in Stefon Diggs has had two very good seasons on the Vikings and is looking to have like a major breakout from that sort of existence, because he definitely has been very, very productive, very good, but hasn't exactly had that major breakout year yet. So let's look at both of these guys. Now, the terms you should be familiar with both these guys. Passing yardage, market share, production. Passing yardage, market share, production. For those that aren't familiar with that term, so you take the passing yardage of a wide receiver and you divide it by the total passing yardage of a wide receiver, of a team. So, for example, if a wide receiver has 1,000 yards in a 4,000-yard passing offense, then that wide receiver had 25% market share, passing market share production. And essentially what you do with that number is you take that number and you compare it to every single wide receiver performance in this, based on this method since the 1969 NFL draft class, and then boom, you have a way of, seeing kind of where all the successful wide receivers were in terms of that particular data point, and then of course you compare it to a guy coming in based on that sort of data point. We're also going to look at athleticism data, specifically the explosive lower body strength score, the speed score, and the flexibility score. Explosive lower body strength score is the vertical and broad jump measured against mass density. Mass density is weight divided by height. The speed score is a 40-yard dash measured against mass density, and then the flexibility score is a short shell / free cone measured against mass density. And we're also going to look at their NFL production using the same methodology as the passing yardage market share production, just at the NFL level. And with all that stuff out of the way, let's get to Marqise Lee in terms of what he looked like in college, what he looked like in terms of his athleticism, and of course what he's looked like in the NFL thus far. So based on Marqise Lee's production in the NFL, not NFL, excuse me, but college, hit a 95 passing yardage market share production score, which is decent. It's very, very good. I mean, it hits at least the 5-time All-Pro level in terms of passing yardage market share, the 3-time All-Pro level, the 3-time Pro Bowl level, and the long-term starter level in terms of his production at that level. So that is very, very good. He pretty much hits the highest sort of tier of production that you could possibly hit for Marqise Lee. And then when it comes to his athleticism, he didn't do that bad either. He had a 72.48 explosive lower body strength score, a 73.42 speed score, and a 78.41 flexibility score. That isn't elite athleticism by any stretch of the imagination, but it is above average athleticism, and it's also athleticism in the case that he has at least one 54 or higher athleticism trait. When it comes to the wide receiver position, you really only need to have one athleticism trait that is above average. You don't need to be like a Calvin Johnson or a Julio Jones to be a really good wide receiver. You just need to be above average in terms of your traits. It's kind of the difference between A.J. Green and Julio Jones. Julio Jones is a tremendous wide receiver with incredible physical gifts and is really productive in the last 3 seasons especially. But A.J. Green is someone who doesn't have nearly as much athleticism as Julio Jones, but does have above average athleticism across the board, and he's put in a pretty dang good career as well in terms of his production. So you don't really need to be the Arnold Schwarzenegger of wide receivers in terms of athleticism. You just need to have some above average traits, and with Marqise Lee, he has all of his traits are above average, significantly above average. So it's decent. Now his NFL career has not exactly been that amazing. In 2014, he had a 62.22 market share production score, which is not exactly that great. 2015, he had a 38.82 market share production score, which is below average. And he did actually have kind of a bounce back year in 2016 with the 83.01 market share production score, which is at least a top 20 to 30 wide receiver, just so that kind of makes a little bit more sense in your head other than percentiles. But his career his career has not exactly been that amazing so far. Despite what his production indicated, despite what his athleticism indicated, he just hasn't exactly put all that stuff together to become a tremendously dynamic player. Some of this could just be because Allen Hurns emerged, and Allen Robinson, of course, and of course there's also been a lot of turmoil at the quarterback spot. There's lots of excuses for why Marqise Lee hasn't exactly put it all together. Mainly because he didn't beat out Allen Hurns. That's kind of the big part of this. But Marqise Lee does have some positives. He has shown some improvement. He hasn't quite had a major breakout, but at least 2016 showed some hope in terms of what his future could look like with him. So don't write Marqise Lee out completely, because 2016 was intriguing overall in terms of his profile. Then when it comes to Stefon Diggs, he had a 94.12 passing yards market share production score. It doesn't show 94.12 because it rounded down in terms of the chart, so just kind of make it easier for you to kind of visualize it. And 94.12 is pretty much hits all the marks you're looking for in terms of 5-time All-Pro, 3-time All-Pro, 3-time Pro Bowl, and even long-term starter. So he hits pretty much all the measures you're looking for in terms of passing yards market share production, which is decent. It's very good. In terms of his athleticism data, he has a 39.28 explosive lower body strength score, a 67.93 speed score, and a 44.38 flexibility score. You may look at this on the surface and go, wow, he's not good. But again, you only need one athleticism trait that is above 54 or higher to be a multiple Pro Bowl or multiple All-Pro wide receiver. Stefon Diggs has one athleticism trait that is above 54, which is his speed score. So despite the fact that he does have below average explosiveness and he has below average flexibility, he has an above average speed score. And that's all you need to be a great wide receiver, is at least one athleticism trait that is above average. And I don't like to weight this either. I don't like to say, well, he has 3 that are above average, so that means that he's better than one guy who only has 1, because if you did that, then you would, put, Dez Bryant over, not Dez Bryant, but you would put like Golden Tate over Antonio Brown if you did this, which obviously right now would look kind of foolish. So I would not weigh athleticism in the ways that most people view it, as like a number where the more athleticism you have, the better you're going to be, because it isn't always the case. You really just need to have above average athleticism. That's it. One athleticism trait that is above average, and it just speaks to skill set. You have certain wide receivers that are speed wide receivers. You have certain wide receivers that are flexibility wide receivers that are really great slot receivers. You have some wide receivers that are really great explosion athletes that are very fast and are very flexible in terms of their stuff, like Anquan Bolden, for example. So just look at athleticism as just, you need one thing that's above average. In Stefon Diggs' case, he has at least one above average trait. And coming out of college, based on his production, he put up the profile of a Pro Bowl wide receiver. He pretty much hit all the sort of indicators in terms of his production and in terms of his athleticism, indicating a potential Pro Bowl wide receiver. So that is basically what that means in terms of both of these metrics combined as a data guy. And in terms of his NFL production, he's been very good. In 2015, he had 83.83 passing yards market share production score, and in 2016, he had 82.71 passing yards market share production score. And essentially in 2016, he had pretty much the same type of production that Marqise Lee put up, just to put that in perspective as well. So he has had sort of a better career because he's put up 2 seasons consecutively that were 83 or higher, or 82, excuse me, or higher. But the bottom line is Stefon Diggs has had a pretty decent NFL career up to this point. He's pretty much been a top 20 to top 30 wide receiver in terms of his production in the last 2 seasons. And I'm going to be very excited to see what he does in the future, definitely. So who ultimately wins this battle between Marqise Lee and Stefon Diggs? Well, here's the main thing that you need to... This is for everybody. This is for analytics guys. This is for film guys. Contrary to popular belief, if you had held up Marqise Lee's production and athleticism and compared it to Stefon Diggs' production and athleticism, I would not say that Marqise Lee is the winner here. I would say go to the tape. Because Marqise Lee and Stefon Diggs, in terms of their production, it's a wash. You know, Marqise Lee had 55, Stefon Diggs had 94, but in the grand scheme of things, if all you really need to do is hit 85 or higher, then that's really just a wash. You know, you pretty much hit the same tier of production. So whether you hit 95 or 94, you know, like you pretty much got the same type of production, so it kind of cancels each other out from that kind of perspective. In terms of athleticism, all you need is one above average athleticism trait. Marqise Lee has 3 of them, while Stefon Diggs only has 1, but you only need 1 to be a great wide receiver in the NFL. That's all you need. You only need 1 above average athleticism trait to be a special wide receiver over the last almost 20 years. That's all you need, 1. And that kind of cancels itself out as well because there's really no strategic advantage. I mean, there kind of a little bit. But in the grand scheme of things, if all you need is 1 athleticism trait that is above average, then just because a guy has 3 above average traits doesn't mean that all of a sudden he should be put over this guy immediately based on paper. So if both these guys were coming out in the same class, because Marqise Lee came out in 2014 while Stefon Diggs came out in 2015, I would say that you should let tape decide who wins coming out of college. You know, because they pretty much have the same profiles based on production and based on athleticism traits of a potential Pro Bowl player, and you really just need to go to the film to see if they reach that height or not. So as much as people may scoff at that, or maybe they just don't understand how data and film interconnects. I don't know. You know, a lot of people, you know, I'm an analytics guy. Sure, that's what you want to call me, but I watch film and I watch analytics. Analytics helps me to, you know, look at the data and go, wow, this guy's productive. Wow, this guy has athleticism traits. Let's see if he's actually a good football player on film. You know, that's what data does for me. I don't know if it does that for everybody, but at least to me, that is how I use data in terms of my own scouting practices. You know, is a way to figure out who hits these profiles, who doesn't, identify players that might be underrated because people, I mean, groupthink is rampant, you know, in terms of groupthink about prospects. So you need to have a way of objectively looking at things, and data also provides a bit of that objectivity, a bit of that to kind of cut through some of the BS and get to, you know, whether or not a guy is good or not. But essentially what I'm saying is their production cancels each other out in terms of college. Their athleticism pretty much cancels each other out. If you want to give Marqise Lee the advantage, that's your own thing if you want to do that. But to me, I would say both of them pretty much hit the check marks for both athleticism. So it's kind of a wash between the two. What it really comes down to is what their NFL production looked like. And based on the last 2 seasons, Stefon Diggs pretty much wins this hands down. His rookie season was decent in terms of having a 83.83 score, and he followed it up with an almost identical season in 2016 based on his production. While Marqise Lee, it took him 2 years just to get to the same type of production that Stefon Diggs was putting up. But they are very similar. You know, I didn't realize how similar they were until I actually ran the data and looked at what they looked like coming out of college. You know, I didn't quite realize how similar they were until I finally looked at that and went, wow, they both have really great production coming out of college. They both had athleticism traits indicating a potential Pro Bowl or All-Pro player. And on top of that, their production, while Diggs has definitely been better, Lee had pretty comparable production last year, compared to Diggs based on market share production. But ultimately, I got to give this to Diggs. I think when you look at the fact that he had 2 consecutive seasons of proving that he could put up this type of production, it says a lot about him as a player. But I would not be surprised to see Marqise Lee take a big step next year, or Diggs take a big step next year in terms of getting into higher heights in terms of his production. But the bottom line is, I think based on what's happened in the NFL, I'd give the win to Diggs. But keep in mind that both these guys have eerily similar production and athleticism, profiles, traits coming out of college. So it's actually pretty. It's more of a tie. It's almost a tie, but not really. But I was actually very surprised by how comparable they are. To a certain extent. That was one of the surprising things about this. But ultimately, I have to give it to Stefon Diggs. So again, my name is James Cobern. You can find my work at draftcoburn.wordpress.com. You can also follow me on Twitter @Geometrics. And if you like this content and you want more content like this, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Share this video as well with anybody that you know, and I'll talk to you guys in the next video. Peace.